Hi everyone, and welcome to our RaC Guild Townhall number 2. Just thought this is our agenda for today. We've got the intros, so for any new people who weren't at the May event, I think everybody here was at the May event. And then we've got Joyce talking about how we got here for 15 minutes or so, and then I'm going to be doing a little bit of a demo on our Rules as Code Sandpit project. Over to you, Jo.
Thank you. Kia ora. So this is fun. It took me back a little bit because I couldn't remember exactly how this all started, but it started in 2018, just prior to the event that's on this slide. I'd met Pia Andrews in my town here in Tauranga in the Bay of Plenty. Pia had chosen a piece of regulation from our local council as one of the exemplars for the Rules as Code innovation work she was doing in the New Zealand government. And that's how I managed to meet Pia, came into our co-working space, and very soon after that we did this hackathon back in 2018. And did exactly what I'd hoped we would be able to do, which is to get members of our community to actually start coding up rules. So not policymakers, not coders, not programmers, people from our entrepreneurial community, getting their first taste of what Rules as Code is about, which kind of fits with the organization that I run, which is Venture Centre, which is all about entrepreneurs innovating, and particularly public goods, social enterprise type projects that they work on. So this was the first event, the community hackathon. We had these 3 teams. So one was very, very homespun. You can see on the right hand side, homeschool co-op, working on legislation to provide parents with funding when they wanted to, homeschool their children, which, is becoming more and more a thing, particularly here in New Zealand. And then the RaDBYIRD, which is Research and Development by the Inland Revenue Department. So there was at the time a number of research and development rebates that you could get that were very, very complicated and still are, to be honest. And this team, because they're entrepreneurs, they wanted to know if there was a way to simplify how they might actually get those R&D grants. And then the last one was actually built with Watson AI. So it built on some work that was done previously with the lab with Pia, and actually turning it into an AI. So back in 2018, we were ahead of the game at Venture Centre. Very pleased to say. Next slide, please, Phillipa. Thank you.
Ahead of your time.
I'll say. And it's also, Pia's always bringing people together and, getting people involved, and everyone comes and starts to charge as well.
Absolutely. We had a number of people fly up from, all those people on the IRD team flew up from Wellington to take part in the event. So it was great. It was really cool. So things kind of moved on and progressed, did various other little projects. And then 2020, all the COVID stuff started happening. Pia and I spoke with each other again, and Pia had moved on from New Zealand government at that point, hadn't started with Amazon yet. And we kind of dreamed up this little bit of a project. How could we build on the experiences that we'd had, both of us, bringing people together, creating and teaching tools to create better systems. So we started this project. Next slide, please. And in true Pia's style, let's start with a bang. We had a 2-hour conversation with Audrey Tang about citizen code, about what it's like to get your community, your population actually involved in creating open government. It's an incredible, inspirational event, and it literally set the course for well, between there 2020 and 2024 being involved with rules as code. And there's a movie documentary docuseries, maybe, I think, that's coming out right now from Audrey, because she's just about to sort of retire from that role. It was a huge privilege to spend that time with her, and literally it started this whole period. Next slide, please. Of course, started with a framework to build on, and started looking for ways to get this project going. And the most obvious thing was to start looking at some rules, some regulation here in New Zealand, and where would that fit? And probably everybody that's involved with rules as code is going to recognize a version of this diagram. There's a lot to pick up, and there's a lots of areas to innovate, and we were using this as basically our base plate to then work out what projects we do from here. So next slide, please. So one of the things that I'd been involved in that 4-year period was getting involved with the Cardano community, which is a blockchain launched in 2014. And by this time, 2020, 2021, it was starting to get very mature, and started an innovation fund called Project Catalyst, which comes from the Cardano. So the funding comes from the Cardano treasury. And at the time, the challenges were actually set by the community. So there would be a vote for which challenges would be put up for the rest of the community to put proposals in for. So this challenge came up: what core nation-building dApp solutions can be piloted for widespread use by citizens engaged in the developing world? And the team who were involved in putting this challenge together had actually had quite a bit of experience with rules as code in the States. And that's what they were hoping to see, is things that could be built and then spread around as infrastructure for open government. So think of government as in from the people, for the people, and by the people. So we took up the challenge. It was fortunate timing. It all worked really, really well, and we picked up the challenge and put a proposal in. And yeah, we won a pretty sizable grant from Project Catalyst to work on this project for over 12 months. Next slide, please. So this was the name of our project, Regulation as Code for dApps, which was creating a community-created open source platform and DIY manuals for anyone to turn laws and regs into code for everyone to contribute and build on. So it was building the first piece of rules as code infrastructure and community, seeding a thriving community, Alfred, around rules as code, and getting other people involved in it. So that's where we started. Next slide, please. This is the team. Few familiar faces, I'm sure, to people in this this community. There were about 23 of us in total that touched this project, which was pretty cool. And not just the coding part, but also the community development part. We had weekly community meetings, which were fascinating to see the different approaches and how people were coming to this. So some from really pragmatic systems approach, some people with a real social justice lens, and obviously in New Zealand, there is an interesting situation around the Te Treaty o Waitangi, which is the treaty between the British and between the Crown actually and Maori. So laws and regulations have an interesting twist, because there is Westphalian law, but then there is also Maori law, kawa and tikanga. So yeah, we had lots of interesting conversations on those Friday mornings. Next slide. So we did the code. And if you're a programmer, you can go to the repo, have a look, bring it all up. We use OpenFisca, the French rules engine, which is now hosted by Salsa, has a version of that, as well as I think the Digital Altera one is still going as well. I'm not a coder, so I'll leave you to go and have a look at that repo. Next slide, please. This is a little video that kind of closes off this project to a degree. It was actually from the gentleman that we created this product for. So as well as taking the rule set, which was, well, you'll hear what the rule set was. We also worked on the UX and the UI, working with this organization so that the project really did stand by itself as an example for the Cardano community, but also it's an artifact that I've used in several conversations since. So Phillipa, if you can hit play and you'll hear from our client.
Yes, I will try. I'll do it from outside. We did have a little test of this before we started recording and had a few problems. So I'm going to come out here to press play. Cool. And share this tab. Everyone should be able to see that again now.
Yep, perfect.
I'm Andrew Hubbard, Deputy Chief Executive of Citizens Advice Bureau, New Zealand. Ngā pau whakapiranaki o Aotearoa. We're a free nationwide organisation that provides support for people across Aotearoa, whatever their issue. Our more than 2,000 volunteers operate from over 80 sites across the country, helping people understand their rights and responsibilities. We help many people across a wide range of issues. One of the common ones we help people with is their eligibility for income support. We're able to sit down with a client, understand the full picture of their circumstances, and make sure that we inform them of all the things that they might be entitled to. The Social Security Act is a complex act. It's undergone many amendments. And we're really pleased to be able to have access to BenefitMe because it comes directly from the legislation so that we can be sure when we use BenefitMe that it's a clear understanding of people's legal entitlements under the law. We're hoping to be able to add more benefits so that we get a full picture using the BenefitMe tool. But already we can see that it's really easy to use and it makes a big difference for our volunteers in understanding this complex area to help clients.
So there you go, that's Andrew. So that tool, as you said, is being used by around 2,000 people who are Citizens Advice Bureau advocates and their clients. So it's touched probably around 8,000 people at least so far, and that number grows daily. The project has since been taken over, since we got to the end, it's since been taken over by an awesome organisation, ACMA, here in Wellington, in New Zealand. And they are doing that work with Andrew to add those, the rest of that, that act's benefits to the system so that BenefitMe can be used by CAB, but equally it can be used by citizens as well, and also community law have an interest in this. So the project is growing its own legs since we put it together, and as I say, it's an artifact that we're using quite a lot. So this was the reason we did it, really. Number one, build out the community and the skills, teach people how to do rules as code, of which there have been very many beneficiaries, and there is an incredibly interesting body of work now for anybody to dive into. If they know nothing about rules as code, it's a great place to start, and it's something that we're encouraging the Cardano community to get involved with. Step two is then applying this knowledge to other projects and Phillipa, who's going to talk next, is going to talk about some of those projects that they're starting to work on at SALSA. And then step 3 is actually work with the Cardano community to actually embed the rules in their dApps in various different countries. So Cardano is a global organization. So the opportunity is to have rules as code community of practice that is literally global, and helping citizens all over the world to create open government. Wouldn't that be great?
Amen.
So that's what brought us here. Next slide. The RaC Guild, part of the project was to start this community of practice, bring everybody together that we'd worked with, and see where the future takes us. So over to you, Phillipa, I suppose. Next steps.
Thanks, Joe. Did anyone have any questions or comments for Joe before we move on to the next segment? I just wanted to say, you go.
No, just there's so much to that, right? Just being a part of that, and that's where obviously we met Joe, I met Joe, but just to join the dots also with Pia, something I only just realized now. So around that time, Joe, Pia sent this public tweet. I think I might have told the story, but what I've just realized is just joined a connection with you personally where she said, hey, doing this cool thing. We're looking for volunteers and some funding to contribute to some public infrastructure for public good, and ... asking for a friend, smiley face. And I'm guessing you were the friend. And that was the tweet that my colleague and partner, our CTO, referred us to, and that's what we responded to then have the time with Pia for when she casted the vision for what is, as you've just presented, and now here we are. So anyway, that's just a personal connection to your presentation and the story.
Awesome.
And there's lots more, of course, as we know, but yeah, we could go on forever. But yeah, thank you for the preso, Joe, and over to you, Phillipa.
Thanks. Yeah, I was just going to say, I obviously met you, Joe, working on that website, that project BenefitMe, but it was nice for me. I didn't know how you got to that stage, and that it was lovely to hear about those earlier years from 2020. So thank you for sharing.
Well, 2018, in fact.
Oh,
right?
well,
Even
yes, true. Yeah, 2018.
Yeah, ahead of the time. AI was when it was.
I know, that was
not
amazing.
A fad. Yeah.
All right, now I'm going to do, I've actually only got one slide because I'm going to use this slide to jump off to demonstrate a rules as code sandpit. But first of all, just for a bit of context. So at the moment, SALSA is doing some work for GovCMS. GovCMS is run out of the Department of Finance here in Australia. And the GovCMS platform is a hosting and content management system platform that's been built for government. So they have about over 100 departments or agencies on the platform, hosting, I think it's sort of 300-400 websites. So of course, a lot of agencies have got multiple websites. And as part of that, some of the leaders at GovCMS are very interested in rules as code and big believers of the power and the benefits of rules as code. And so they wanted to set up this ability for GovCMS clients to do little sandpits or little proofs of concept. So thinking about, they have a range of agencies on their platform, from Services Australia, who do a lot of payments such as services, disaster payments, and all your classic social security payments. They have Department of Health, lots of big agencies like CASA as well, Civil Aviation Safety Authority, and they have a lot of rules. So a lot of agencies who could play in this space very nicely in terms of rules as code. So we've been doing these sandpit projects. And one of the first ones that they wanted to do was for entitlements. I see the links here. I'm not actually working, so let's hopefully, yes, this one's up. So I'm just going to move tabs and share this tab. So in this particular case, this was actually a website or web form that was already working, but they have, for a variety of reasons, they were wanting to try to replicate this form or part of this form as a proof of concept on using the rules as code systems. So in this one at the moment, you can enter in your name.
Phillipa, is it worth just explaining who they are and what problem they were trying to solve, or what the case was? Or
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of
oh,
trying.
I'm sorry. Okay,
I'll
I've
be
ruined your flow. Okay,
explain
all
that.
right,
Although
cool.
no, I haven't said who they
Yeah.
are. So this is an area within the Department of Finance, the Ministerial and Parliamentary Services, and they're involved when people leave the service. They're involved in calculating how much the employees should get. So when they, you can see just written here for MOPS Act employees, this tool calculates an estimate of your likely payout following cessation of your employment. Read and agree to the disclaimer and then complete the form that will appear below. So basically, you just talk about what your type of employment is. Are you casual? Are you ongoing, etc.? And you fill out this form, and it will end up telling you how much money you should get in terms of your severance pay. So I won't go through and fill out all the details on this form, but basically they wanted to be able to see if this form and this use case could be done using our standard rules as code stack, which for us at the moment is OpenFisca and Drupal. And I need to go to this tab now. So basically what we did is we followed our standard processes, which is starting to look at the rules in a visual way using Miro. So I will go to this tab now. And you should be seeing a Miro board loading at the moment.
Yep, it's loaded.
Great. So basically, in terms of our flow, we started off looking at, well, what are the actual rules? And we also, because it's only a proof of concept, and these sandpits, they're very small engagements. I think it's in total 96 hours each, and that covers discovery and rules mapping and OpenFisca building and spinning up the Drupal website, building the web form, etc. So they have to be quite small in terms of scope. So we wrote out the rule statements for this one. We wanted to show, or they wanted to be able to see that something could return not eligible. So this is very much using rules as code for eligibility, but also with calculation. So are they eligible for severance pay in the first place or entitlements? And if they are, how much should they get? So we wrote out some of these rule statements. All ongoing employees receive their annual leave balance when they leave. Ongoing employees who leave because they're terminated when an employer ceases to hold office, e.g. due to a federal election, are entitled to any accrued annual leave plus an additional severance pay based on the number of completed years of continuous eligible service. And we've also got some of the calculations in terms of the logic in there. Then we wanted to look at the user flow. So this gets a little bit crazy, but you can see, if you zoom in here, you've got a person who comes in. We looked at what the pathways were and didn't do all the pathways because, as I said, we were trying to keep the scope small. So if we have a zoom in on the casual, you'll see there's a question, what is your employment type? Casual, and we can get eligible equals false. So casual employees are not entitled to any kind of severance pay or entitlements. Then if we move into the other pathway that we mapped or partially mapped was ongoing. So you can see here we've just got connectors lines. So if they're an ongoing employee who's a senior staff, who's a principal advisor on pay point 1, these are all just internal descriptors, and they're receiving a parliamentary staff allowance, and then this is how many hours they normally work in a week, what their current annual leave entitlement is. If they're leaving because the employee will cease to hold office, so that was to do with that extra loading that was in the rule statements. And then if they have answered yes to that, well, what is their completed number of years? Got some of the calculation logic there as well. So basically, this is how we map the rules in a fairly visual way so that you can clearly see the pathways. our next step is to actually go into a spreadsheet. So I'll bring up that spreadsheet now.
How many people were working on this, Phillipa?
So this has got, from CELSA, we've got Kate, who's on the line, is the engagement manager. I've been doing the BA work. We've got Mark Calvert, who worked on the BenefitMe project doing the OpenFisca development work. And on this particular one, we had one of our Drupal leads, Suchi Garg, working on the form and the just the way the integration with Drupal.
Awesome.
Okay, so this is the way we've laid it out here. So you can see you've got the first question, which is the person putting in their name, the type that it is, which is a free text, the content, if there's any content in there. I'll go down to a next one. What is your employment type? And you're saying you've got a radio button and they choose casual or ongoing. And you've got, you can see the paths there, that if they say true, then the results equals false. Otherwise, they go on to, so that's true to being casual. Then that's false because they're not eligible. If they are true to ongoing, then they move through the questions. So we just have the question path there laid out within this spreadsheet. We also put in the test cases in the spreadsheet as well, so that you can actually, these are used during development because we follow an OpenFisca is our development tool, as we mentioned at the moment, and we use a test-driven development to actually code, so that our OpenFisca coder, in this case it was Mark, can actually put these variables in, these values in, and make sure that he gets the correct response in terms of eligible and what the value should be as well. Then these test cases can also be reused when we do our QA. So the QA can also enter in these variables here and inputs and make sure that the output is correct. And then from the spreadsheet, we go to the finished product. So I'm now going to bring up, so as you can see, it just clearly says that, you know, this is a proof of concept website only. This is a Drupal website that's been spun up using a design system and Drupal 10 theme called Civic Theme. And in here, we can go to the main page for the final entitlements estimator. You can see we've just replicated the disclaimer here. And obviously you do need to click this before you receive the rest of it. In this one, because it's a smaller form, I will take you through it. So if the person selects casual, then they're automatically told that they're not eligible. If they select ongoing, then the next question comes up. So let's say they're senior staff, they're a principal advisor on pay point 1. They normally do a full-time week. They currently have 34 hours of annual leave saved up. They're on the parliamentary staff allowance, and they are ceasing employment because their employer is going to no longer hold office. And then let's just say they've been working for 10 years. And then they're given this calculate button so they can calculate that. And it gives them the estimate, their total net that they should receive as their entitlement or their severance pay. And this is includes the total salary, payment in lieu of annual leave, severance benefit, and also takes into account the tax as well. So it's just a nominal tax rate, just taking the highest tax rate, and then it may be adjusted, but just as a starting point. And then they're also given the ability to go and view the rule statements, and also they can see what the inputs were that they put in. Now I'm going to go back to the presentation. And I did skip, of course, so stage 1 is the rules analysis in Miro, stage 2 is setting up the spreadsheet, and stage 3 and 4 is the OpenFisca and Drupal build to give you that final demo. Were there any questions on that demo?
So that was 96 hours?
Yeah, was it 9?
Yeah, we did deliver this within the 96 hours. Yeah. So it's pretty small scope on it, but it was a pretty standard Sandpit site that we built. And the beauty of this one was that the finance team providing the data actually already had a lot of the data mapped out for us. So we didn't need to spend as much time in discovery understanding the pathways, because number one, we already had an existing site, as well as they have a pretty amazing solution architect who had all of it mapped out. So we had some of our discovery work already done for us. Yeah.
Awesome. And how does that compare with working literally from scratch with the Social Security Act? Phillipa Alfred, what was the difference like?
Well, it was a bit faster. Surprise, surprise. And a bit easier to validate different pathways as well, because, you know, particularly having that tool there as already working, that they were confident that all that was correctly calculating as well. So it was good to have that for us. Having said that, we also wanted to, because we were trying to show them the process, we still, as you saw, we still mapped it, even though we had their mappings, which were done in a visual diagram, but a different sort of visual tool to mirror. We still did it, followed our standard processes, partly to show them the way we would normally be doing a rules as code project, because that's one of the things that's really important for this GovCMS Sandpits, is that they're actually trying to share the learnings throughout the public sector, through the whole Australian public service, so that you know, so we're working on another one at the moment, and we've got like literally we can have 30, I think we've had even more, 35 people come in as observers, because the goal is that they want to eventually be able to do a lot of the mapping themselves or with us, and so they need to upskill. And so part of that is to actually take them on that journey, to show them you know, some of the first draft rule statements, work with them to refine those, work with them to the subject matters, to get them subject matter experts to check them and make sure they're all working correctly, then work with them on the mapping, take them through the mapping, do some of it offline, because literally they're, you know, watching me drag and drop and copy and paste bits from a legislation and into little boxes, etc. But just to kind of give them that that feel of what, you know, how it's actually done. And so that one, that this is one that we're working on at the moment, it's based on legislation. It's very, very similar to BenefitMe, so it's following that same process. So it is slower, but also you kind of get back to the source document, so which is also, it's also something kind of satisfying about that, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess
starting from the act in a PDF, right, and then turning that, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I guess oh, sorry.
Old school and printed as well. Sorry, I was just going to say she went old school and printed the legislation pages off.
But part of it I did. I got my highlighter out. I was, you know, making sure I had everything, all my noughts and crosses ticked and everything.
Yeah, I was just going to add a couple of things. I mean, going back to the example of 30 plus people in a room, part of our success criteria and for us, and on behalf of the community in the greater rules of code ecosystem, is educating, empowering others, right, to lower the barrier for greater adoption and all that good stuff. And that's a big thing, to state the obvious. But going back to your question, Joe, about how to compare to BenefitMe and New Zealand Social Security Act, and I'm going to answer this from 30,000 feet away, right? Obviously, because Phillipa and Kate were on the ground. But I guess just to state obvious, which we might know, but our audience might not, that, you know, naturally the BenefitMe, New Zealand Social Security Act, I mean, we were with our L plates on learning OpenFisca, learning the rules as code paradigm, learning the methodologies, you know, even on the Drupal side, figuring out how the two talk to each other. But since then, and since all that work, it's okay, well, learning to developing a process and a methodology that we could adopt, but also the design system and integrations that we built so that they could be reused to lower the barrier for subsequent rollouts, and all of this development of reusable tech all open source, of course, is so that we can do these faster, cheaper, better, and again, ultimately lowering the barrier to greater adoption of rules as code. And so, yeah, but also, and the other obvious thing is, and actually, I'm going to assume this, and Phillipa, you'll be able to speak with greater authority. I'm going to guess that the level of complexity in rules of what we did for parliamentary services, if I got the name right, compared to the New Zealand, was like order of magnitude easier and quicker and faster, right? I mean, it was a lot smaller, the set of rules that we did, which would have made it a lot easier as well.
Yes, definitely the set of rules that we did. I mean, there were some parts of that we didn't do, and there were still some calculations in there. But yes, much easier than the Social Security Act. We also had a smaller team working on it. As Joe knows, there was a lot of people working on the New Zealand project at the time, so we had more bodies in there doing the mapping, cross-checking everyone's mapping, etc. So I'm going to. Oh, sorry.
No, just awesome, and the pieces that you've created, not just the systems, but the CMS and the design system, and that makes it possible to do that in 96 hours, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And even then, there's still lots of opportunity for us to make things even easier. And now when you start to do a lot of them, you start to see more patterns for greater opportunity to then streamline and build, widgets and things and so, yeah, as we continue to go along, we'll continue to identify those patterns that we can then make even easier and obviously contribute and give that back to the community for others to adopt and lower that barrier even further.
Awesome.
Just a lower level question, Phillipa, and because privacy obviously for a lot of people, notice you put the name there at the start. Do you want to just explain what the role of that name was? Is it stored anywhere? What's its purpose? Why does anyone need to put their name in a form like that?
We were trying to replicate the existing form, which so we did notice that the name was in there as well, and they said it's only for printing purposes. So you can see, I'm just going to share this tab. When you go into this one, it says used for printing purposes only. So I don't know if it's storing it in this system, but in our system, it's not storing the name. It's there's no database with OpenFisca, so it's only storing the name in terms of the Drupal instance, and then yeah, I'd need to check with Suchi whether if it stores it in Drupal, but it's not storing it in OpenFisca.
And it wasn't storing it in BenefitMe, right? So a citizen could come along and see what they were entitled to and not have a record of them having, looked that up and actually changing their criteria as well. So
yeah,
see, like, should I have my auntie come stay with me? What is that going to do to the situation that I'm in with the Ministry of Social Development, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really want to have your name attached to that. So yeah, I know on BenefitMe it wasn't.
No, and even obviously with that one, whether you're using the original one that's live at the moment or the proof of concept one, there's no kind of check on the name, so you can put in Jane Doe and if you wanted to as well.
Cool. Very nice. And how many of these proof of concepts have you got going at the moment?
We have completed 3, and we've got another 3 in flight at the moment at various stages.
Awesome.
I've got that right, have I, Kate?
Kate went
5. I went 5, yeah, but I lose count a little bit, so yeah.
And then there's another 3 in the wings, and the total of 12 to be delivered in the next few months. So churning through quite a few and learning a fair bit.
And talking to other governments as well, I understand, yeah.
And the good thing is we're learning from every sandpit as well, and the learnings that we take away, we're putting forward into the next sandpit. And so, it's growing, it's evolving, and all of us are learning from this whole experience.
Fantastic.
Yeah, even our spreadsheet's a little bit different because this one that I just showed you was our second sandpit. So the spreadsheet's been refined a little bit. The Miro for the last couple have had to be more, because they're more focused on more complex eligibility rules. So now, instead of doing the journey mapping in terms of the question and the Miro board reflecting the journey, the Miro board is actually reflecting eligible if. And so all of the conditions that need to, or requirements that need to be met for someone to be eligible for a certain thing.
Great work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other business that we'd like to talk about today? The next slide after this is just when the next town hall is. So if you're going to say, yes, we need to talk about the next town hall, it is on the next slide.
No, I don't think so. I'd love to reach out to the group that have the Audrey Tang video at some point. Just making that a note to make sure that that video gets distributed, because it will be good.
Yeah, we could probably put that up on the resources page on the RaC Guild.
Yeah,
and that'd be awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah,
That'd be
if we're
really
allowed
good.
to.
Yeah, you should be. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's Radical Exchange, the community that are behind that. So they're keen to get all of their material out.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Okay, so just for our next town hall, so we are alternating between 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time and 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time to try and get different time
Continents.
zones. Yeah, basically. Well, mostly continents, yeah. So our next one will be back to 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which I think suits our North American and that kind of band of members. So that one will be on Wednesday, the 3rd of July at 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And we look forward to seeing, we've already got actually all the presentation spots for that. So 3 presentations lined up for the next session. So that'll be great.
Awesome.
In July.
Thank you so much, Phillipa and Joe, for your presentations tonight.
Yes, thank you both as well.
No worries.
You're welcome. Good to see you all. And if we don't see you before, we'll see you on the 3rd of July.
Yes. See you then.
All
Cool.
right.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
all.
Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
see ya. Bye.
Bye.